Hi everyone. The purpose of this video is to explain to you the Urban Patterns assignment. You can find the Urban Patterns assignment under the Urban Patterns module. If you click on the Urban Patterns assignment, you'll see the instructions for the assignment, as well as at the end you'll see the rubric on how you'll be graded on this assignment. This assignment is two parts. So there are two parts to this assignment. The learning outcomes that you're going to meet by completing this assignment are here. So the objective of this assignment is to help students come to an understanding of the basic elements of urban models outside of North America and more recent interpretations of urban structure. The students may also gain an increased understanding of urban structure models describing North American cities by comparing them to a model describing a Latin American city. The students will understand how the classic North American models are being reinterpreted as new forces act upon and change cities today. Okay, so the first thing you need to know is you need to learn the three models of North American cities. You're going to then compare those models to a Latin American city. And these models of urban structure help explain where people tend to live in cities. And the ones in the United States were developed in Chicago by a bunch of different people in academic fields. And the models of urban structure help geographers understand where people live with different social and economic characteristics. And usually it's given their income levels. So this is why it's important for us to know these models and how they compare to each other. So I give you a little bit of background information here on the three models. So the concentric zone model is one, the sector model is another, and the multiple nuclei model is the third type of North American city. Okay, and then you're going to compare those to the South American or Latin American cities. Okay, so I did not give you up there any background information on Latin American cities, but you'll see here under part 1 of the assignment, I give you a link to a lecture, and I also give you access to this wonderful article. It's a JSTOR article, so you'll have to go into the library databases at CCP, and then you can type in the name of that article when you get to JSTOR. If you're not sure of how to use the databases that CCP has to offer, see my video that can be found under the project module, because it shows you how to look up a database from outside of campus. So once you do that, you would then type in the name of the article and the article will pop up. All right, so here are the two parts of the assignment. Part 1 is read a description of the model of a typical Latin American city using the sources below, so I want you to use these two sources. List at least 3 similarities and 3 differences between the classic models of North American cities and that of a typical Latin American city. Below are the readings and videos describing Latin American cities. Be sure to reference each classic model. So here's the thing. I want you to give me, in part 1, I want you to give me 3 similarities and differences between North American cities and Latin American city. Do you need to give me 3 similarities of the concentric zone model to Latin America? 3? No. 3 overall. So 3, but you need to mention mention each model. So I need 1 similarity and difference with the concentric model to the Latin American city. I need 1 similarity and difference to using the sector model, and 1 using the multiple nuclei model. So that's what I want to see in your paper. So you need to make sure you understand what those models are and then compare them to Latin American cities. So make sure you're going to at least reference each one of the models somewhere in those similarities and differences. So that's part 1. Make sure you cite your references in there too. Part 2 of the paper is there's no length on that. I need you to give me the similarities and differences. They shouldn't be one word. They definitely should explain what the similarities and differences are between them. And then part 2 of your paper has to be at least 2 pages single spaced. Okay, so part 2 of the paper has to be at least 2 pages single spaced. Part 1 has no word limit on it, but you need to make sure that you have covered the 3 similarities and differences. Part 2 is conduct research on 3 of the topics found below from this list, okay? On each of the 3 topics, you will choose from, you need to include what the definition of that term is, 2 specific examples, not overall examples. I want you to tell me where this is happening and with 2 specific examples, okay? And a description of how the term represents a change in land use from earlier models. Okay, so it could be, well, the central business district used to be here, but now we have these high-tech corridors, which has changed it, or we have these different types of technoburbs coming, which is changing the outer concentric models suburbs areas. So you want to make sure you talk about that. So here's the list. You're going to pick 3 of these topics from here. You're going to define the topic. You're going to give me 2 specific examples for each one of the topics that you choose, and then you're going to explain how this is different than what the normal models were. Okay? Remember, these models were made in like the the concentric model was made in 1923, was developed or whatever. The sector model was in 1939, and in 1945 was the multiple nuclei. So things are changing. You know, the world has completely changed since 1945. And so these are the new kind of areas that we see now, and I want you to explain those. Okay? So I want the project is, or the paper is 2 parts. Number 1, the similarities and differences. Remember, I want you to mention each one of the models somewhere in those similarities and differences to Latin American cities. The second part of your paper is to pick 3 of these topics. You're going to define it, give me 2 specific examples, and then explain how this is different than those models that were created in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. You should have a significant amount of sources for this, because each one of these is probably 2 sources each, because you got to give me 2 examples. So probably 2 sources, and then the definition is probably 3 sources. So you're talking 9 sources already for that, for just this part. And up here, you're talking about at least these 2 sources. And then if you're going to use your book, or if you're going to use some other source. So I'm looking at 10, 12, 13 sources for this paper. And now we're on paper 2. And so it's really important that you go back and you look at the comments that I've made on previous papers to you. You can go in Canvas, you can click on the grades tab, and you can see the comments I made, because a lot of you failed to give me specific examples in your previous assignments. You gave me overarching things instead of specific examples. This paper wants specific examples. They want current day examples of edge cities, decentralized cities, gentrification, high-tech corridors, master plan communities. All of these words are buzzwords that are out there right now. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and please give yourself time to complete these assignments. If you do not give yourself enough time to complete the assignment, then you usually are not putting your heart and soul into the assignment, and you can tell when I'm grading those. If you have questions on how I'm going to grade you, here's the rubric on how I'm going to grade you, okay? So your paper needs to be at least 2 pages single-spaced. At least. No headers at the top of your papers, just your name, and then you start typing. At least 2 single-spaced page paper. This should be pages. It probably is going to be more than that, because you have to give me your similarities and differences. Again, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out.